It should say live. There it goes. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. I have JCM Berne, author of the Hybrid Helix series, and I believe there's a fantasy novel in the future.
Yeah. Partial Function should be coming out. I don't know when because it's with Sarah Chorn, who wrote Necessity. She's my editor, and she has it, and she's going to get back to me soonish, right, with something. So I'm in that stage where I don't know. Is she going to say fix a few things and we're good, or is she going to say start from scratch, Joe? This is awful. I don't really know yet. I don't. Think
Well, Sarah is worth waiting for. That is for sure. And I've read a lot of things that she's had her hands on, and I have been just the ones I can think of right off the top of my head have all been 5-star reads. So yeah, that's fantastic.
why I reached out to her, right?
Yep. So we have Kate from Vegas. We've got Eddie. What's up,
Nice.
you guys?
From Vegas.
Yeah, Kate. I don't. We're not friends right now.
Kate beta read Partial Function for me.
I know. I'm so jealous. I'm like, I've got to clear out my TBR. I've got to quit scheduling it and packing it so tight so I can leave room for fun things like this that pop up. So yeah, the FOMO was.
Don't look at me. I'll send you anything you want.
Yeah. You're an enabler, a reading enabler. I love it. But
TBR fluffer.
What we are doing here this evening is my second. I was about to say inaugural, but we've already had an inaugural. Second episode in my tri-chapter series, where the idea is for readers who see maybe on Twitter their favorite booktubers, they're talking about this book, but they're just not quite sure, is it for me? And I know anybody that's on social media has seen the cover for Wistful Ascending. The cover of Wistful Ascending is why I wanted to read the series. I didn't care what it was about. I just saw that cover and I was like, that looks like Uncle Jesse from Full House as a superhero. I am in. And that's all it took. And wow, it was maybe a gamble, but it paid off for me. And so I just wanted to give authors a chance to come on. It's kind of like a virtual go to a bookstore where you read from your work, because that's always been something that's hugely impacted me as a reader, is hearing the author read their words. Because it's my experience, you know where that nuance goes and you put it there. You don't have to have the best reading voice. You don't have to be Adam Gold or Stephen Pacey. You know where the emotion goes. And I love I've bought so many books hearing authors read their own stuff. So reading chapter 1 is a teaser and just letting people hear it and give their opinions if they have questions. Non-spoiler ones, of course. We just throw those in there and just have a good time. And let's see. Oh, yeah. So Eddie said he was one of those guys, too. So I am not alone. Thanks, Eddie. We will have our own club. We're like the cover buying bookworms. Even if I didn't like it, I don't care. I would have just still had it on my shelf because it's so pretty. But the third one is the one. No, the second one is the one with the shark on it. That was the one that I was like, oh, I have to know what this is about. Like, I haven't read that one yet. I've got to get that one. I have it on the schedule for my series buster. I'm going to try to do, like, knock out a bunch of series.
Yeah. The covers was revealed. We did it yesterday with Jordan.
Wait, I didn't see the cover. I saw y'all talking about you were going to show it, but I didn't see it. It was in there? Okay, we're going to do a live react.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
I don't know if I can. I don't know how to share it with you. I'm sure there's a way.
Or
if you just click to the end of his video, I don't know if you can bring that up.
But where is it?
Oh, I don't know.
How did I miss that? Oh, that's the wrong one. That's Tiago's.
Oh yeah, Tiago's was on John Morrow. The Grimdark magazine revealed Tiago's third book. That's a banger. That cover. What did I do with that? Is there a way?
Jordan's got it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Shirtless Rohan. I'm in.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
What is he beating? Is that it's like a sandworm
it's a
on a
dinosaur.
sandworm head on a raptor body.
It's a dinosaur. It's definitely a dinosaur. It's not an
Oh,
maybe
that's
anatomically correct dinosaur, but it's a dinosaur.
is that a
Yeah,
tie-in from the first book?
I don't want to.
No, that was like a big. Never mind. That's a spoiler. I won't go into that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Kate.
So every cover, Chris takes more clothes off Rohan, which is net. I never asked him to. My Chris McGrath is the artist, so I'll give him like a rough idea of what I want, and I swear to God, every book it's like I don't know if he just doesn't like drawing the uniform or if he just thinks it's more exciting without it. But I'm like, Chris, by book 6, we're gonna have to put an X rating on these things. We're gonna need like a little sticker in the middle of the book so I can sell it on Amazon. I don't think we're
Oh yeah.
right.
Yeah.
He
Well,
likes to shred
I
stuff. Book
mean,
2, he's got the full thing on. Book 3, stuff's coming off. Book 4,
yeah. Book 3, there's more missing than there, and I was here for that. So
yeah. Let's see what it does to sales over the long term. But
oh
no,
my
Rich
gosh.
is amazing. He's a fantastic artist. So,
Yeah, I've been a long time fan of his, so
yeah.
yeah, it was no surprise that your cover stood out to me since he's the one that does Dresden,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, that's how
Yeah.
we got him. I mean, I told the story, and I was like, I looked on my shelf. I literally was doing like, I need a cover artist, and instead of spending like weeks researching like any sane person, I just turned around, looked at my shelf. Oh, I like this one. Who did this one? Oh, I googled it. I'm like, okay, I emailed the guy, and like the next day he was my artist. So it was
That's
not the right way to do things. It was kind of hilarious.
I mean, but it worked out.
It did.
So
It did.
it can't
Sometimes
be
better to be lucky than good.
that's right. Well, now's the time
All right.
to give us a brief little elevator pitch for Wistful Ascending.
I wasn't late for. No, you didn't miss the reading, Anita. Anita just asked if she missed the reading. No, we haven't.
Not yet.
What's the elevator pitch for Wistful Ascending? Rohan is a retired superhero trying to live a peaceful life and trying to escape his some dark things in his past. And he finds out that you can run from your past, but your past won't run from you. Now, that didn't work. That was terrible. I'm not good at pitching.
I just always say superheroes in space.
Superheroes in space. It's like
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like a Thor 3 meets Dragon Ball Z. Or
I actually filmed a video recently. It was either this week or last week, so it's going to go up in the next couple of weeks, where Wistful Ascending makes an appearance. And I think I said something about imagine if Harry Dresden wasn't a wizard, he was a superhero in space, but more humor. There you go. So
I was definitely highly influenced by Dresden in a number of ways. So I will happily take those comparisons.
yeah, I think you're a lot funnier.
Oh, thank you.
And
I hope other people agree.
yeah, I don't see how anyone could not enjoy the humor, and
Oh,
it's so well timed.
people don't. I've read all the reviews. Some people are like, why does he try to make these jokes? What is he doing? And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's kind of funny.
I mean,
Everyone has their
some
own
people
taste. Okay.
just like to tell jokes. They like to laugh, and some people it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, look, people have different tastes. That's fine. You know, if you don't like the jokes and the puns and stuff, read a different book and enjoy it. Like
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
I mean, I have come across books that had humor in it, but it wasn't my kind of humor.
Yeah.
Like I like ha funny. I'm not this is a very uncouth way to describe it, but I'm like not a dick and fart joke fan. Not a ton of them. Like if there's like one or two, I'm okay. But if it's that kind of humor that is just constant throughout, I'm like, I'm out.
I admit, there's a couple dick jokes in this book, I'm sure. Not a ton, not every page, but there's a couple.
Yeah, so that's also people that have discovered you through your channel and then read these books. I see, like, when I think of Wistful Ascending now, I definitely, now that I know you, I see you as the main character.
Oh, well, I mean,
Hey, Suze.
I definitely write. Rohan is basically, it's my voice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I have to think real hard and figure out what would he say in this situation. I just have him say what I would say if I were more brave and tougher, and have infinite time. That's the other trick, right? If you,
Yeah.
it's always the comeback, the witty comeback that you can't come up with in the moment. When you're a writer, you can just think about it for 3 days and then write it, and just it's
Yeah.
fine. So you have
Well,
this freedom.
I've learned that as a reviewer. I used to finish a book and I'm like, all right, let me write the review right now.
Oh.
But I've learned that while I can go edit a written review, that's fine. But if I film a review immediately, that doesn't work out because inevitably the next day I'm like, oh, here's a really great way to say this. And man, I would have sounded so smart if I had said this. And oh, I should have said, if you like this book, then this book is for you. Like,
Yeah.
so I've started where I like finish a book.
Mm-hmm.
I won't start a new book immediately because I'm really bad about that. I actually just kind of sit with my thoughts for the rest of the day. I'll write the review the next day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still think about it overnight one last time before I film. And then I feel like, okay, this feels like a better review to me. So
same thing writers do, right? I'll write a book and then like 3 months, it's over 6 or 8 months. So I'll think of
Kate.
Better the shirt off. That's the sad part.
Oh man, yeah. Kate, are you imbibing in Vegas as well? I have something called an aviation. I don't know what it is. My husband made it, but I told him I needed a space themed drink for tonight, and he was like, you got anything else I can work off of? And so I was thinking about the cover, and I was like, all right, we'll match the cover. I need something blue, yellow, or purple. And this is what we came up with. So I don't know. It's
I do not have access
strong.
to my bar because we're not at home. This is a boxed margarita. I kid you not. I saw this in the store and I'm like, I've never seen a box of margarita before, like ready to drink. I couldn't resist, and it's not good.
Oh man.
Drink it, right? It's still margarita.
Yeah, so you're gonna get white girl trashed on a box margarita.
Yeah, I'm gonna get white girl trashed. Absolutely.
Well, before you drink too much,
No, I'm
we
good.
should let you get started
Okay.
on the first. Are we gonna do the prologue?
I was thinking that the prologue and the first chapter, maybe, because the prologue.
Okay.
And prologue doesn't do much.
And for those of you who have, after we get through with chapter 1, we're going to talk about the prologue in chapter 1. And then for those of you who have read the series that are just here hanging out for the fun of it, we're going to get a sneak peek at chapter 1 of Shadow of Hyperion. So stay tuned for that. But we're going to let Joe have the floor here and do a live reading for us.
I should have practiced, and I did not.
So every time you start a sentence over, everybody take a drink, right?
I just want to say, the audio on Audible is not me. I actually.
Oh yeah.
I hired a narrator, and he's excellent.
Yeah, he does do a great job.
Okay. Where was I? All right.
You were talking about you are not the narrator on Audible.
No. So I actually have real narrator. So if my reading is terrible, don't let that dissuade you from picking up the Audible, because that's.
I forgot his name.
Wayne Farrell.
Thank you. He did great.
Yeah. Maybe I've had too much margarita. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Wait.
When you say.
Okay. I was getting him confused with another author I know. His name is Wayne Finland.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I feel terrible now. I'm totally blanking on like I'm like, is that his name?
Oh. Everybody drink.
Everybody drink. Yeah. Oh, I got a bounty. How did I do that? I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, at least you can write.
Embarrassing. Yeah.
bandits over here
Who's Wayne
waiting as
Farrell?
well.
Okay. I had a sudden freak out where I'm like, is that an actor? I'm thinking of some actor when I said Wayne Farrell, but that is his name. Okay, Wayne Farrell is excellent. Whew, he's your analyst. Okay. I don't
I hope
even.
he's not watching.
I
It's
know.
like, dude,
Oh,
read your book.
yeah. He got paid. He's all right. He'll forgive me. Okay. What would Rohan do? Rohan would drink, and yeah, he would have another shot. Okay. Are we ready? Do we want me to start?
We're ready.
Okay, I don't know how this goes. All right. Wistful Ascending. Here we go. All right. Prologue. Beginning of the end. Rohan's helmet whined with the heavy demand as he drew in a painful, choppy breath. Rex, I know it's called a punchline, but you don't have to actually hit me. The enormous hybrid drove a ham-sized fist deep into the soft tissue just below Rohan's sternum. Mom said if I left Earth, I'd die on some nameless moon. Looks like this could be my chance to prove her right. Before we finish, I just want to say thank you. Rex's teeth gleamed pearl white between snarl-locked lips. For what? Rohan's voice was little more than a wheeze. I've wanted to do this for years, but I never thought you'd give me an excuse. You should have had a little more faith. Give me enough time, and I can give anybody a reason to try to kill me. Rex struck again, a few centimeters lower, his hand sinking wrist deep in Rohan's belly. The smaller man twisted and thrashed as the acid taste of bile rose in his throat. His heart pounded as he remembered how awful it was to vomit inside a sealed face mask. He was trapped. Two of the select few people in the galaxy stronger than him held his arms in unbreakable grips. He stood submerged thigh-deep in moonstone they had temporarily liquefied, a contained gravity field that would have ground most people's bones into paste immobilized his spine. If I just relax right now, the weight of my head might snap my neck. At least it would be fast. Given all the things I've done, that's probably what I deserve. Maybe more than I deserve. A woman's voice came over the comm system. Rex, ease off. If he pukes and chokes to death right now, we won't have a full revenge, and we won't have any answers. She was hairless, with skin so black that human eyes couldn't quite focus on it. Her small ears lay flat to her skull. Two wide eyes shone like an owl's above her half mask. I know her. What was her codename again? Rex raised a hand as if to slap her, then lowered it slowly. We don't need answers. We're not investigators, not scientists. The sneer echoed through his tone. Our way is to act. That's what you two forget and why I've always been ranked higher. Rohan coughed. Blood flecked the inside of his mask. You're ranked higher because the fathers like the fact that you refuse to think for yourself. It's not respect. Certainly not competence. Rohan felt Rex's anger surge. The big hybrid hit him again. Mom also said I didn't know when to keep my mouth shut. 10 years later and I still don't. Rex, I mean it. Calm down. Don't interfere, Clear Eyes, unless you want to be next. She flinched in response. Oh, that's the Rex I remember. Why even try to persuade when physical threats are an option? Rohan turned to her and croaked. Thank you for trying. Don't thank me. You're still going to die here on this moon. Die? Here? Can't we talk this out? He paused to draw in more air. I much prefer to die on a different moon, maybe one with a name, just to prove my mom wrong. He turned to the dwarf who gripped Rohan's other arm. Does he always babble this way? Does he doubt that his death is imminent? The dwarf's gravelly sigh was audible over the comms. He is always like this. When the danger is great, his chattering only worsens. His fingers, the color and texture of fine Italian marble, held Rohan's right arm. Rohan coughed again. The gravitational pressure was squeezing blood into his lungs. The jokes are my secret weapon. My puns will get so bad, you'll let me go just to escape them. Rex pulled his arm back as if to deliver another blow, but paused mid-swing, his narrow-set eyes focusing on Clear Eyes. You said you want answers? To what? We know what he did, and we know he has to die for it. What else is there to say? The dwarf nodded. Rex is right. Just kill him and get it over with. This brings me no joy. Listen, both of you. We know what he did, but not why, and most definitely not how. She tightened her grip uncomfortably. Don't you think we need that information? The dwarf sighed. What difference will it make? No imagination, these guys. No curiosity either. It hurts my pride to die at the hands of such a simple-minded pair. Clear Eyes is the only one with two functioning neurons to rub together. Rex nodded. He has to die. That's what matters. I am not disputing that. His fate is sealed. She swiveled her gaze between the others. But that knowledge would help us in the future. The big hybrid's long blonde hair swung through space as he shook his head. You're overthinking. He won't willingly answer your questions, and even if he did, what would you really gain? Just a parade of facts spewed out to confuse you. Rohan drew in a slow, cautious breath. That's it. I might deserve to die, but Rex certainly doesn't deserve the satisfaction of being the one to kill me. I have to at least try to escape. With an effort of will, he pulled energy up through the base of his tailbone in twin, sparkling, spiraling columns. They arced around his spine, winding around vertebrae up to the base of his skull. A connection was made, a metaphysical circuit snapping shut. The power coalesced and solidified, flooding out through his body. His head cleared, his lungs relaxed, and even at 50 gravities, his weight was no longer a burden. With all the strength he could muster, he jerked his body savagely to the left. The jolt was sudden and violent enough to pull the dwarf off balance. The stone-skinned man stumbled into Rohan, who immediately arced his upper body back to the right. His head cracked down into the dwarf's face. Think twice next time you multiply gravity around someone who's standing over you. My mother's people call that karma. The dwarf fell backward, stunned, releasing his grip. Rohan's weight returned to normal as the stone around his boots loosened. One problem solved. Rohan sent a pulse of energy through his legs, pulverizing the puddle of stone, holding him in place. He grabbed the pull of shards and pulled them up in a swirl, forming a quick cyclone of razor-edged pieces. Rex, roughly humanoid but the size of a small grizzly bear, moved toward Rohan with a fist cocked back at his shoulder for a big overhand right. Rohan willed the storm of stone right at the giant, forcing Rex to flinch back and raise both arms to protect his face mask. Big as you are, you still need that mask to breathe. Clear Eyes held his left bicep. She jerked him toward her, pulling him off balance, and aimed a vicious knee at his gut. He twisted, taking the blow on his side. Rohan ignored the cracking of a rib and twisted away, moving with the pull, and snapped a quick kick at the knee of her supporting leg. I thought you were too smart to take orders from Rex. Shut up. Your banter needs work. Did they take witty repartee 201 off the academy curriculum? She lifted a meter off the ground, reached up with her free arm, and dropped an elbow towards his face. He raised his right arm in time to deflect the blow. Then he rose and pulled her in with his left while punching her in the side. She wouldn't let go. They twisted and tumbled together, each tossing violent punches and snapping kicks at the other in a flurry so fast it resembled a pair of mating hummingbirds more than a fistfight. Rohan torqued and pulled and shoved, fighting for a superior position, fighting to free his arm from her iron grip. Her eyes gleamed denial. You've never beaten me in training. You're certainly not going to manage it now, injured while holding off Rex. She's not wrong. I don't see what I have to lose by trying. Rex's jackhammer blows were rendering the stone pieces into powder. Rohan couldn't manipulate dust, not well enough to use it as a weapon. He tried to spot another source of loose stone nearby. Failed. He paid for his lack of focus when Clear Eyes locked his arm out and hyperextended the elbow, tearing soft tissue inside the joint with an agonizing pop. He fought through the pain and landed a solid punch on her face, loosening her grip just enough to ignite a spark of hope. He twisted his shoulder, fighting wildly to escape. Before he could get free, a potent sinking feeling overwhelmed his gut as the gravity increased again, crushing him to the ground with a heavy jolt and a fresh cloud of moon dust. Damn. Hoped the dwarf would stay stunned longer. A fast hook from Rex snapped his head around. The hard surface of the moon liquefied under Rohan's feet and he sank down, deep enough for the stone to lick at his thighs. The dwarf stepped up and grabbed his free arm, easily fending off Rohan's half-hearted defensive jabs. Rex gripped Rohan's shoulders in baseball glove-sized hands and propped him upright. Rohan looked into the larger man's face mask and saw ice-cold eyes over a humorless smile. I know I should say I won't enjoy this, but it would be a lie. Rex pulled his right arm back, arching his entire body like a bow drawn by invisible hands. Rohan watched dully as Rex's fist hurtled toward his face. Things were going so well just a few days ago. The impact sparked a flash of lightning inside Rohan's head, chased by a quick sunset into darkness. Chapter 1. 12 days earlier. Rohan strolled casually along the wide residential boulevard that ran down the middle of the southern arm of the station. Children were playing aimlessly nearby, kicking balls back and forth in a game with no apparent rules. He let out a long breath, turning his mind away from a vague feeling of disappointment. There had been a time when crowds of people would gather just to glimpse him walking by. He had moved to the station in part to get away from that celebrity, but he was discovering that anonymity had its own drawbacks. Like the loneliness he could somehow feel while walking through crowds of people on a space station filled with millions of sentient beings. Don't forget, that loneliness is the price you're paying for a life where you haven't seen the inside of a regen tank in 6 months. The comm link affixed to the skin behind his ear chirped. "Tow Chief, please report to work early today." And by early, I mean immediately. He recognized the voice, Security Chief Wei Li, not the person who usually coordinated his schedule, also not technically his boss. A Red Bull rolled to a stop at his feet. Rohan sighed and bent to pick it up. He tapped the spot on the back of his jaw that activated the comlink's microphone. "I'm not due for another 2 hours. How do you know I don't have a date?" "Do you?" He sighed. "No." Would you like a moment to check your social calendar? Perhaps you have an engagement that slipped your mind, teeming as it is with thoughts of the wide variety of social appointments with which you are confronted. "No, there's nothing. As usual. I can come out." His plan hadn't extended further than walking the corridors of the station and listening to songs over his comm, songs that had been committed to his memory for over 10 years, despite being in a language he barely spoke. A Lucor child, neatly dressed in yellow pants and a red shirt, twin antennae standing at attention, came up and held his hands out for the ball. Rohan tossed it over. The boulevard was 50 meters wide, a rolling canyon, with a clear diamond shell separating and protecting it from the cold vacuum of space. Walls of shops, living quarters, and offices in stone and wood rose 10 stories high on either side. The air was cool, not as dry as expected, and the grass underfoot felt thick and crunchy. This was the only station he'd ever seen with enough open area that people could actually live out their lives without succumbing to space sickness, where kids had enough room to kick balls around. The boy, both antennae twitching as he spoke, shook his head. "Those colors are terrible on you, mister. Brown skin against purple and yellow. You should get a new tailor. As for something in forest green or orange, think about bright red if you're cool enough to pull it off." "No, not the red." Rohan smiled. He was wearing a close-fitting jumpsuit. The yellow was somewhere between neon and actively fluorescent, with accents in a metallic purple, rumored to cause an assortment of mental illnesses if a human stared at it for too long. The material was thick and soft against his skin. The design was functional, not aesthetic. The boy's reaction wasn't a surprise. Lucor, as a species, were fashion conscious. It obviously started young. "Not my choice, buddy. It's the station uniform, which you should know. I guess you're new here." The boy nodded. A voice called out, and the boy turned and ran back to his parent. Rohan's comm chirped again. "The need is urgent, Rohan. A fixed wormhole just opened. A ship has come through and is heading this way." Wei Li's tone was even, despite the enormity of her words. You mean one of the dormant wormholes that haven't opened in 10,000 years? I would have to do some research to determine the exact number. I thought, never mind. Aren't the other ends of those wormholes supposed to lie outside of known space? Seeing as we do not know where the other ends are located, by definition, they are outside of known space, yes. So we're talking about a first contact here, a new species, or at least a new civilization? That is Wistful's belief. Okay, that's super interesting, but are you sure I'm the one you should be assigning to this particular task? I am not, Tow Chief Rohan. However, Wistful is. Oh, if the boss says it's my job, then that's what it is. All right, I'm coming. Where does she want me? Just head out into space or report for some kind of briefing? He was concentrating as he spoke, trying to remember if he'd ever been trained in protocols for first contact situations. There had been a lot of training. Exit immediately to intercept. I'm transmitting directions to your mask. You'll be briefed en route. That voice was Wistful's. Unsurprisingly, the station had taken a direct interest in whatever was coming out of that wormhole. On my way, Rohan looked around quickly, taking in the assortment of station residents walking to or from their jobs, children playing, and a scattering of tourists gawking at the views of the planet above them. He looked up, checking that the way was clear. He lifted off the ground, accelerating rapidly toward the diamond lid high above the street. Just before striking it, he turned, carving a right angle in the air, and continued up the corridor, his back skimming the roof, centimeters from the hard vacuum beyond it. He flew station north toward the center section of the cross-shaped station, where he knew a rarely used airlock was waiting for him. He pulled his mask out of his pocket, in his hood, and over his face as he slipped into the open airlock. The mask was made of the same diamond-based material as the roof over the station. Its air supply hissed awake as soon as the lining sealed to his face. The airlock had cycled fully within seconds. He pulled himself through the outer door and into space, leaving the gravitational field generated by the station and floating away from the airlock. Lines appeared, projected onto the inner surface of his mask, illuminating a flight path away from Wistful. He flew a tight orbit around the station, leaving the nearby planet and the system's central star, Toth, behind him. It was a struggle to turn his attention away from the beauty of the station, coated in sparkling diamond and lit up by Toth and an array of vast floating mirrors. Once clear of the station and the scattering of shuttles flying close to it, he punched up his speed. On a planet, his velocity was limited by how much drag he could overcome. In an Earth-like atmosphere, he could reach his top speed in seconds. In open space, he could approach the speed of light, given enough time to accelerate and a reason to go that fast. Wistful's voice came over his comms. Full acceleration, please. The ship is not responding to hails. It might be in need of assistance or deterrence. Her voice was flat, typical of an artificial intelligence, her tone failing to convey the urgency her words probably warranted. Copy. With an effort of will, he pushed harder, increasing his acceleration by an order of magnitude. What am I supposed to do once I reach this ship? Whaley answered. First, attempt to establish communication. Offer any possible assistance, but as always, it is conditional upon the ship adhering to normal procedures. Meaning they have to agree to power down before approaching Wistful. Yes. And if they won't? Do whatever you believe is required. He sighed. Copy. He was halfway to the system's edge when his mask's display indicated he needed to slow down. He decelerated according to instructions, following a course that would bring him to a low velocity relative to the ship. Rohan began probing the ship with both thoughts and comms the moment he saw it. No response. It was as useful as probing an asteroid. Wistful, I don't recognize the ship design, and she still won't talk to me. Whaley answered. She isn't answering us either, and I can detect no sign of life from the ship itself. She might be dead? Perhaps something about the wormhole? If Whaley couldn't sense her aura, the ship was most likely dead. Whaley was one of the most sensitive empaths Rohan had ever met. Had the wormhole killed the ship? He put the idea aside. He wasn't smart enough to even guess at how dangerous it was to navigate a long-dead wormhole. That discussion was best left to the physicists or the mystics. I'll try to get her attention the old-fashioned way. Maybe there's a crew on board that will talk to me. Have you guys tried radio, maybe, or lasers? Whatever people use. Maybe something low-tech. Semaphore. Send someone out here with flags. We're trying everything within reason, from tachyons to radio. Wistful is helping us dig comm equipment out of storage lockers that haven't been open since before your species developed language. We're testing each as quickly as we can. The comm link dinged. Whaley had nothing more to say. Rohan flew closer to the alien ship. The hull was a standard, highly reflective white. Most civilizations built ships easy to see as a default, unless they specifically wanted ships that weren't. The bulk of the ship fit into a vast teardrop shape, a common configuration for anything that was atmosphere capable. It was distorted by 3 bulging spheres, 2 at the sides like bullish shoulders, and the last attached solidly to the tail of the teardrop. The spheres looked like gravity bootstrap drives, fairly common as they were the cheapest and most efficient drives available and required no tech beyond basic artificial gravity. Also a purely technical drive with it being a dead ship. He felt a small frisson of anxiety as he got closer than was considered polite. He had little choice as long as the ship wouldn't answer him. Markings littered the hull he could recognize as writing but not decipher. He got closer still and saw blisters and discs marring the ship, probably sensors and docking ports. Closer yet, and he could make out scars etched into the outer layer that looked freshly repaired, unpainted metal gleaming jagged lines across the hull. This ship has been through a firefight recently. Rohan circled, hoping to find something like a porthole. He needed to contact someone inside. He slowed as he neared the blunt end of the teardrop. I'm approaching the front of the ship. He coasted to a slow drift, close enough to touch the hull. He focused on the surface and floated along, braced for some reaction. Most ships would fire on anybody getting so close without an invitation. Wei Li's voice spoke into his ear. Anything? Not yet. Wait, here's something. He saw a break in the white of the hull, a strip of material wide and thin, set flush into the hull, not reflecting any light. A window. Rohan floated across to the window gently, arms held in front of him with hands open like a child approaching to pet a stray cat. Glare made it hard to see in. There was no visible reaction from the ship as he approached, so he put his hands on the hull and pressed his visor up against it. With his hands cupped around his head, he finally got a look inside the ship. It's a bridge, a command deck or observation deck or something. There's a big chair in the middle, I guess a captain's chair, and desks around it, all with a view of the window and screens and switches and stuff. His voice trailed off. Wistful spoke to him. Are there crew, Rohan? What species? He laughed. I was going to say they're like nothing I've seen before, but that's not really true. There are 12 of them all staring at me. What species, Rohan? Wei Li, less patient than Wistful, asked him. I think they're bears. Like, straight up. It's a mammalian species from Earth. These guys would be right at home in Yellowstone Park. The creatures in the room were tall, much taller than humans, and covered in heavy brown or black fur. Their jaws were long and filled with fearsome teeth, all uncomfortably exposed, because they stood with their mouths wide open and stared at him through the window. Rohan fought back an involuntary quiver of fear. He supposed fearing bears was encoded somewhere deep inside the human half of his DNA. He moved a couple of meters to his left. Their heads swiveled to follow him as he moved. A couple of them turned away, closing their jaws shut and tapping at their desks, as if using instruments to verify what they were seeing. Maybe they weren't used to people flying through space with no more protection than a face mask and a jumpsuit. Are you still trying to radio with these guys? Because they are definitely aware of us. Wei Li answered. Still no response on any frequency we're monitoring. All right, I'll try to get inside. Maybe I can get them to, talk. He rapped on the window. The nearest creatures jumped back at the sound. At least they're not deaf. I won't have to try using sign language to talk to them. He moved up so his full body was inside the viewing angle of the window. He showed his hands first, drawing attention to them. Then he pointed to himself, tapping his own chest vigorously. Then he pointed through the window to an open spot of floor near the front of the room. I used your bathroom. He didn't mind that thought. He repeated the motions, then pressed his face to the window again. One of the smaller of the creatures, its fur marked with gray streaks that Rohan assumed to be a sign of advanced age, stepped forward. It waved at him, then pointed to its lower right. Rohan nodded and flew in the indicated direction. A hole opened up in the hull. Weapon port or airlock? He figured he'd find out pretty quickly. He got lucky. I'm inside. Can I breathe in here? Checking. Pressures with intolerances. His mask had quite a few sensors built into the edges, and Wistful could monitor them remotely. Breathable for humanoids class A through D. Great, thanks. Unmasking. The inner door of the airlock opened as he slipped his mask off his face and dropped it over his back and into the waiting hood. Rohan took a deep breath. The air was slightly warmer than station standard, thickly humid, and smelled like a summer day at a poorly maintained zoo. First lesson, space bears were not sticklers for personal hygiene. Two of the bear creatures were standing outside the airlock. They were dressed in a dark red material, shiny like leather and stiff enough to hold its shape, armor or the base of a spacesuit. Both pointed large tubes of metal at him. He briefly considered taking the guns away and doing rude things with them. Instead, Rohan raised his hands. Don't shoot, I come in peace. The bears looked at each other quizzically, then turned back to him. One gestured toward the bridge. He walked, hands still raised. He wasn't sure what to do. Should he try to appear more threatening and make them afraid? Or be nice, go for cute and cuddly? As a lance in the Ildroth Imperial fleet, he had been trained to lead with fear, To default to a show of force in almost every situation, he had lived and breathed intimidation and violence daily for 10 years. I'm here and not on the deck of a fleet warship because I decided that's not how I want to do things anymore. The two guards led him to the bridge. The gray-streaked one walked over. Based on its relative size and build, Rohan guessed it was a female. Though small for a space bear, she was still a half-meter taller than him and, at a guess, 100 kilos heavier. He smiled, not too wide. Not all sentients viewed a baring of teeth as an inherently friendly gesture. He cleared his throat and prepared to speak the fire speech. He was out of practice, but he doubted the bears could understand Drachna or English or the other local languages he knew. He was rusty. He spoke slowly, enunciating carefully. Hello, I am Tow Chief Second Class Rohan, acting representative of the Independent Space Station, Wistful. He pointed out the window in the general direction of Wistful. The bears all stepped away as he spoke, glancing wildly about. The gray-streaked female spoke first. How is it that we fly through the eye, which has been closed for thousands of years, and the first being we meet can speak our language? Second lesson. Space bears were not sticklers for etiquette. Actually, funny thing, I don't speak your language, that is. It's kind of a trick called the fire speech. Imagine every language is just a shadow cast on a wall by a fire. Someone taught me to speak like the fire. The female tilted her head. She seems dubious. Always hard to read the body language of a new species. I do not understand. To tell you the truth, I don't either, but it works. She looked to the larger bear to her left, a gigantic creature with heavy scarring around his muzzle and a glowing red orb where his right eye should have been. He shrugged his huge, powerful-looking shoulders. The female shook her head and turned back to Rohan. I still don't understand, but that's not relevant right now. I am Brrr, of the people of Brrr, and I am the captain of the ship. We are looking for refuge, food, water, air, rest. We have had a long journey. We would be most grateful for any aid you could offer. Third lesson. Space bears could put theoretical concerns aside when there were practical matters to attend to. It was a good sign as far as Rohan was concerned. Oh, okay. Small problem there. I can't reproduce those sounds, either your name or that of your people. I don't think I have the right facial structure for it. I'll just say you're the Ursins and you are going to be Ursula. Congratulations. The Ursin tilted her head. Why those words? You look just like bears. They're a creature from my homeworld. The Ursins muttered among themselves in unhappy tones. To be more specific, they're an apex predator species, and people of my race are terrified of them. We use stories of bears to scare our young ones when they misbehave. The female nodded. Then we will be happy to be known as Ursins. Great. You're welcome to dock at Wistful, and we can talk about providing whatever help you need, but you'll have to turn off your drives. No ship is allowed to approach the station under power. The Ursins looked unhappy again. The large one-eyed Ursin surged forward 2 steps. Let me kill him now for his insolence. How dare he suggest we turn off our drives? Calm down, unintelligible roar that was probably a name. Let him explain. We don't know their ways. She turned to Rohan. This is a surrender? Turn off the drives. Is that what you are demanding? Asking? Rohan spread his hands. No, nothing like that. Not surrender. It's just standard procedure for anyone visiting. Respected guests, traders, anyone. Even Imperial warships power down when approaching Wistful. Otherwise, when you dock, one mistake firing the drives could tear the station in half. No offense. That's it.
Oh, man. I think everybody in chat that's read the book is like instantly ready to do a reread.
Yeah, I'm waiting for someone to reread the series. I'm waiting for all the little clues I left in book 1 that relate to book 4 and for people to catch it all. Drink, yeah, I have to drink. I messed up a couple times.
Oh, man. Yeah,
that's weird. I never read that out loud, like ever.
Really?
Yeah.
I had forgotten that chapter 1 was the end where he meets the Ursins and the roaring. Oh my gosh.
That he meets that kid whose name I don't want to reveal.
I know. I was trying to think of his name, but I could picture him in my head. And I was like, oh,
I
I
know
love
his
this
name.
kid.
I just want to give it away.
Yeah, I love
Rinth.
Love that kid.
It's not really a spoiler, Rinth. I forgot
Yeah.
in chapter 1.
And talking about the fashion, it just brings back all the memories of like what's to come.
Yeah.
Such a good book. But there's a so that y'all can hear there is humor, but there's also serious things going on.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a comedy. Like I think sometimes people,
Yeah.
say, "Oh, the book is funny," and people are like, "Oh, so it's a silly book. It's a comedy." And then they hear Space Bears, and they think, "Oh, so it's a comedy." And I'm like, some serious moments, right? Don't. It's not all laughs, right? There are some grimmer parts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a dark book, right? It's not grim dark. It's not gonna.
No, it's not grim dark, but it, as you get from the prologue in chapter 1, Rohan is working at Wistful to get a. He spent 10 years working for the Imperial Fleet, and it said, daily he was an aggressor. Every day he was supposed to meet everything with aggression, and now he's just out here at Wistful. He's able to just be himself, relax. And there's layers to that. So,
I mean, I tried. there's. I did not expect to meet the Space Bears that early. Yeah, I didn't expect the Space Bears. I told this many times that in the very original thoughts about this book, they were gonna like be gone in chapter 3. We never hear from them again. And then somehow they ended up. I needed them for something else. I'm like, oh, if they were here in this scene, it would help structure everything. And then they're in every book, and I can't not put them in every book because now.
oh yeah.
It's like this.
I was thinking earlier, like about some of my favorite scenes and the funeral. That's how I want. Like I was talking to my husband about it. I mean, poor thing. He's just had to hear about it, but he's a reader now. He's an audiobooker. He has to drive back and forth to work, and it's not that far away, but he has to go on odd drive, and the traffic is terrible. And when he runs, he'll listen to audiobooks. And I have this one, and because we share like a family account, he can see my audiobooks. I'm like, Chris, you got to check this out. I've been talking to him about it all day, but like out of order. I'm like, oh, there's this really funny scene. So, yeah, I'm with Kate. Don't get rid of them. I love them.
No, all the books you use. Yeah.
Yep. He just DNF'd his first book the other day. It was really cute.
Oh, that's exciting. My wife has never heard any of these, so it's kind of funny. She has zero interest. Kind of amusing. I show her the new cover, and she's like, "That's nice, dear." And she pats me on the head, and that's all she wants.
Oh my gosh. Sue says the humor reminds me of nursing humor. Yeah, gallows humor, sort of dark and weird, but it's there to help heal. Yeah, I can't read either. It's there to help deal with the serious stuff. Yeah, I can't remember. I was talking to somebody about that earlier today, that sometimes that's just how people process things, is making sometimes inappropriate dark jokes. I do it.
Yeah,
it's like my brain refuses to like make any sense out of what's going on, and but I'm always like that though. I'm a big joker.
Yeah, right. I am too. I mean, I was making inappropriate jokes. That's like that's my love language, inappropriate joke. Right.
Yeah, but unfortunately, people a lot of times don't get mine. I'm like, you get it? Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I have to explain it. And then my husband's just like looking at me, like, no expression. I'm like,
you're in a bad place.
Yeah. He laughs at me when I'm trying to not be funny. I'm like, why are you laughing? And he's like, oh, sweetheart. I'm like,
yeah.
Great.
Well, thank you, Melissa. I didn't mention for that sweet comment. And John, Anita, thank you guys. Ursula. I'm just going through the comments.
Kate. Yeah, you can't be held responsible for.
Not after 7 drinks, or 7 times a drink, or whatever you said. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to limit myself. Like if I'm going out around people, like I need to be careful. Like there's a 2 beer limit. and it can only be beer. Limit.
Yeah, no, I was I can drink a crazy amount now. We were on a cruise for 2 weeks, and it was unlimited booze. So you start having like 2-3 drinks with lunch, and then 2-3 drinks in the afternoon, and then 3 or 4 with dinner. And by the 12th day, I couldn't like feel it anymore. I was like, my liver is like iron. And actually,
Yeah.
I'm actually like trying to drink less for a while. I'm like, I need to like back off and let my body like get normal
Just
again.
you need a IV of water.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
All right.
Colin.
Yeah,
Hello, sir.
yeah.
Hi, John.
John.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I have a limit. I have to stick to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know about y'all, but if those of you who haven't read this book yet, you have to let me know. What do you think? Do you think it might be one you're going to pick up? I instantly wanted to reread it. He wasn't even done reading the first page, and I was like, I want to reread this book.
Thank you.
Well, I won't give that away. I have a new something I'm going to try, and I have to try it out on a book to see how I like it. But I'm gonna try a new system with books, and I want to do that with this book if I get along with it. Yeah, secrets and things can't
Oh boy.
disclose further.
Oh boy, yeah. Now I'm gonna wonder.
Yeah, well, hopefully it won't take me too terribly long to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't promise that, Kate, because I'm like doing terribly about reading books with people these days.
Look,
I just kind of.
everyone has a full TBR. I just finished Touch of Light, which I've been promising to read for like 8 months or something. Which I didn't put off because I didn't like it. Or I wasn't now. Hey, it's Britain. How you doing? It wasn't that I didn't want to read it. It was just like there's so
Busy.
many.
Well, like with me, with our family stuff going on, I'm like carefully just planning like 2 weeks ahead, so that in the event we have to just drop everything and go home,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about. Because like this was supposed to happen like a month ago, but I had to reschedule with you because we had to drop everything and go home. So yeah, the new DNF machine. I'm not really a new DNFer. I just went through a run of books that were not for. So the problem is usually the majority of DNFs that I've had this year were books that I did not choose for myself, if that makes any type of sense. Yeah, A Touch of Light, I liked it. It's a book that I think, in my opinion, it's in depth. It's one that I read slowly. I read like maybe 2 chapters at a time and let that sink in. There were some really great themes that I wanted to just spend time in before. Like it's not a book you binge. There's a lot going on, and I was like trying to connect all the things.
And the beginning's tough. Like he throws, it's a little. It reminds me of Malazan a little bit. I don't mean in overall, but in the sense that
Yeah.
you read the first chapter and there's a lot of proper nouns and a
Yeah.
lot of stuff getting thrown at you without a lot of explanation, and you have to just kind of believe that you'll eventually figure it out, but you're not going to understand what's happening as it unfolds.
I describe Malazan as you're thrown into the middle of a marathon. You have no idea what's going on. You just want to catch up and let everything else catch up.
Yeah.
Yes, Melissa. I've read that one. Have you read The Legend of Blackjack? Loved it.
I read it. Yeah, I read it a while ago, like last year. When it was getting really, I don't know why. I don't understand how my TBR works. It's very random. But I like Legend of Blackjack a lot. That was a really fun. It's not my usual thing. I don't usually like stuff. I'm not. It's not really YA, but I'm not a YA guy. But it doesn't have any of the annoying stuff that some YA has.
Correct. It's a very endearing story. Is how I feel about it.
But AR and I have similar similar senses of we both are on the sort of the side of we're not writing grimdark, right? We're writing the other side of it, And we both kind of get annoyed when people are like, oh, well, people aren't dying left and right. There are no stakes. Or people will say that, though. It has to be really grim or else who cares? And we're like, no, there's other ways. That's fine, but there are other ways that you can care. So,
Whew, John, I don't have, like, there's not enough time left in my life to read all the books I want to read. See, if I try to push through a book that I'm not enjoying at all, I don't want to read it all. Like, if I try to say I'm going to finish this book, then I just find every excuse not to pick it up. And then I'm like, but I have all these other books that I know I'm going to love. Let me just move on. And if I try to make myself push through, then that review is going to be not good. Not good.
Yeah.
I have not read the novella yet, but I have it. The story of my life.
I think I did. I either read the novella or an early version of the novella. I can't remember if I read the final one.
He's
just talking to each other.
Other John. Yeah, and I just prefer to just say I'll leave a little comment saying why it didn't work for me personally, because that might be exactly what other readers are looking for. So I do try to say what doesn't work for me, but I'm not ugly about it. I'm just like, I didn't like this because it was marketed to me as a thriller and it was more of a literary fiction, and I wasn't in the right headspace for it. So I have had that happen where, I had it happen recently. I picked up Deathless Beast by Andrew D. Meredith. I was at home, and that book, I need to be where I can have note cards, where I can make notes under different characters. Also, I need like information about the religious order, like which titles go to the male half, the female half. So I was like, I couldn't spread out there like I can here. So I was like, you know what? I'm not keeping up with this. I can't keep up with all the characters. I can't keep up with who is who and what the paladins are and the levels and the vows. I'm gonna set this one aside for a minute and come back to it later. So that's more of a not right now type of thing.
Yeah, there's certain like places and moods where I can read certain things.
Talk about Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. No, I used to read everything. I would never DNF when I was younger because, when I was younger, I had more time than money.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I DNF the book, I had nothing to do.
Correct.
But now with like Kindle, I'm like, and as an adult, like an adult salary and with adult responsibilities, I only have a little bit of time. I can afford to just buy another book, and aside. Like it's the time that's restricting.
I think that's why I love the Wheel of Time series so much, is because I was I was high school, college age, so money was not growing on trees at that point because I was responsible for buying my own stuff like that. Yeah. And so I like those books because they lasted me several days. But if I were not a fantasy lover, like that was my gateway to fantasy. If I wasn't a fantasy lover now and I tried to start with that series, I wish he was alive and could let a modern editor get a hold of that series, because the books would probably be half as long and much better.
So there are two things wrong with Wheel of Time, right? People can have problems with some of the stuff, like maybe like he equates a strong woman with a stubborn woman, and that always just aggravates me. I'm like, those are not the same thing, right? Just not listening to reason doesn't make you strong, right? So there's stuff like that bugs me, but then also I just feel like there's just a lot of pages per idea. So like the whole, like you may read like 800 pages, and I'm like, this would be a great 400-page book.
Repetitive. He says it the same way in every freaking book, and I'm like, change it up, bro. And it's like I did a review for Blood Over Bright Haven, and that's one of the things I said, because I'm actually rereading Wheel of Time right now, and I was like, if you like the gender injustice of Wheel of Time, but you want it done better, read this book, because he is so repetitive, and it's said the same way by the same character, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
See, I'm always trying to fit my books into a word count. So I don't have room to fluff and like long descriptions of like traveling or whatever.
Yeah.
'Cause I can't, then I won't fit it into the. But I want them to look the same on the shelf.
Yeah.
Which
Well, author Brian Bowyer, who writes self-published horror, he is the most bare bones succinct. He edits himself so harshly. I mean, he cuts out everything that's not needed, and I just absolutely love it. You when you read Brian Bowyer, if you love one of his books, you're gonna love every single one of them. Like it's just I just love that. So, well,
all right.
if you're get you a nice long sip, and for those of you who don't want to be spoiled, Joe is going to treat us to chapter 1 as its current state is, because Shadow of Hyperion isn't out yet. It's not in its final stages yet. It's in editing. So chapter 1 could understandably change, but it's still a sneak peek at the idea of how this new 4th book is going to start. And he's going to treat us to a reading of it. So if you don't want to be spoiled on it, this is where you need to dip out, because we're going to jump into that reading. I don't care about spoilers. I'm going to read it anyway. I'm more of a Brandon Sanderson. It's the journey, not the destination. So put that up there.
Wow, you've got the fancy graphics.
You should, John. Every time I write something, I will read it out loud to see, because a lot of times it sounds good in here, but out loud, I'm like, wow, that was not good.
Yeah. I did a lot. Yeah, when I was editing the audio, and my narrator Wayne Farrell, whose name I thought I forgot. When I was editing, I was like, oh, I'm going through it, and I'm like, oh, I should change that, and I need to fix that sentence from listening to him. And a lot of people do that. A lot of authors I know will have their text to speech in Word, read the book to them when they edit.
Oh.
It's another way to catch typos, especially typos, right? Like, you get the wrong, I forget what it's called. Words that look similar but sound different. It's not a homophone. I forget what it is. Anyway, not important. Read it out loud. Yeah. I should do that. I'm lazy. All right. So this is Shadow of Hyperion. This is Shadow of Hyperion. Anything to do with Dan Simmons' Hyperion? No.
Thank goodness.
Right. So Hyperion, if you haven't, Hyperion is mentioned in every other book. So Hyperion is a like Earth's greatest hero, who's been deceased. When WISTFUL Ascending starts, I don't know if it's exactly clear, but it's been a couple of years that he's deceased. He was sort of Rohan's mentor, and
when he meets the doctor, they talk about it in conversation.
Yeah. So main character. Well, I don't want to necessarily give things away, but there are people who are very involved with his life. Rohan knew him, not Marvel superhero either. Although I know who that is. He's Omni-Man, he's Superman, it's the same shtick. He was Earth's greatest hero, except he's dead. And why is this book called Shadow of Hyperion? You're gonna have to read it to find out. I'm not telling anybody, except some people have read it. I've had beta readers, so there are people out there who know. So this is in the stage of I'm not reading the version that came back from my line editor. So this has not been line edited, but the chapter will be the same. So there are sentences that I will fix up before this gets published, but nothing will be moved out of the chapter or like deleted. So this is the chapter, except like I said, I'll clean up the language some. And there's no prologue this time. I finally listened to everyone complaining about the prologues. I got a lot of negative feedback about prologues. So I finally decided that at book 4, I don't need them anymore. All right, we ready? We get crazy chapter titles too. The chapter titles in this one are my best yet, I think. Maybe. I always have funny or weird, I think they're funny chapter titles. But I think this one has quite a few that I really got a kick out of. So, I mean, it made me laugh. Does that mean you're going to laugh? I don't know. All right.
Probably.
There we go. Okay. Shadow of Hyperion. Chapter 1. Not a prologue. Rohan floated outside Wistful's southern arm, eyes closed and arms stretched out to catch as much of Toth's warming rays as possible. What should I do for lunch? Back to the Craddock soup place, or try the new Drexian barbecue spot that Ben wanted to check out? Maybe the lines have died down. It's been open for a week. The music playing in his helmet, one of 7 mixes of Doom Machale in his collection, lowered to near inaudible levels as a voice responded through his helmet. I do not understand the question, Rohan. Please restate. Lunch. I'm trying to decide where to go for lunch. Your lunch break begins in 47 minutes. Your next assignment is to bring Love Boat into North A3. Thank you, Wistful. On my way. It was most likely his personal AI talking to him, not the station herself, but it never hurt to be polite. The music resumed as lines projected onto the inside of his face mask, directing him to Love Boat's location, right outside the buoy perimeter that demarcated Wistful's protected space. The Ildra hybrid sang along to the song's repetitive chorus as he turned away from Toth and pushed himself through space toward the waiting ship. Love Boat came into view, tall and very narrow. She had graceful curves accentuated by her white, gold, and platinum trim. Hail, Love Boat. Oh, hello, Tow Chief Second Class Rohan. It's a pleasure, as always. Toth was a regular stop on Love Boat's itinerary. As always, Love Boat, ready for your tow? The ship hesitated before responding. Sugar, would you be a darling and permit a little tight beam communication just between the two of us? That's odd. Of course, Love Boat, a holding position. Tight beam communications were linear, not broadcast. Nothing could intercept the transmission without being physically between them. A few seconds later, he heard Love Boat's voice over his comm again, with a subtle change in audio quality, as if the ship were sharing a room with him. Thank you, Sugar, for the tight beam. I do understand it's a breach of protocol. Rowan scratched at his beard, right behind the seal his mask made to his face. Of course. Is everything okay? She hesitated again. I certainly do hope so, Tow Chief. My captain wanted to make sure I took the time to inform you of an oddity we noticed out near System Edge. Rohan sighed. Tell me. Tow Chief, I'm sure you know as well as I do that a part of our tour of this lovely system includes a swing past each of the 5 wormholes. It is, in fact, a highlight of our package, right up there with the culinary marvels available on Wistful herself. We get passengers from half the galaxy with this tour. She's dragging this out, probably nervous. I'm aware. Well, since the wormholes are far out in the system, I fly through paths most ships just wouldn't take. No reason for them to really. Too out of the way. I get it, Love Boat. Can you tell me what you saw, please? I couldn't believe it at first, So strange, what with Wistful and the Empire being on, let's just say, tense terms with one another. Not that I'm judging. Of course not. But I checked again, and surely enough, out at the edge of the system, there is an Imperial ship just sort of lounging. Ship? No, I'm sorry, Sugar. I suppose I misspoke. Not a real ship, just a cargo transport. But one of those big ones, military shuttles. But it must have been brought here by a ship. Surely it didn't fly all this way at sublight speeds. And I am unaware of any way a shuttle could open its own wormhole. There's a way, but it's better I don't bring it up. Okay, Love Boat. Thank you very much for that information. The shuttle is nothing to worry about. I can bring you to dock now. But are you sure an Imperial ship in this system? Surely that's a violation of some treaty or another. Is there bound to be violence? I hope not. My passengers prefer their danger at a distance and confronted by people paid to do that job. No danger, at least not from that shuttle. Wistful gave them permission to stay there for a time. It's part of a negotiation. Ah. Love Boat's voice sang with harmonies of relief. That is so very good to hear, Tow Chief. Thank you. And yes, I'd be pleased to be towed to dock right now. Engines are offline. Great. I'm closing the tight beam connect, Love Boat, approaching your anchor point now. Rohan flew across the ship, skimming her gleaming hull, and approached the cutaway in her center that exposed a handhold meant for towing. He set himself next to it, grabbed the metal sphere, and pushed. Love Boat began to move. 3 songs later, she was docked into her berth at Wistful. It took Rohan 5 songs to get the next ship out past the buoy perimeter and 4 more to bring in the final ship in his morning queue, a cargo vessel that happened to include in its manifest a shipment of Andervarian bourbon coming from a distillery that he owned. Looking forward to trying some of that. He checked his queue again, tapping at the side of his mast to scroll through the docking requests and verify that nothing was urgent enough to postpone his lunch break, when his song died and a sharp beeping rang in his ears. What is that? You set this alarm to monitor onboard news feeds and sound under certain conditions. I did? Are you sure? Never mind, that was rhetorical. Of course you're sure. What conditions? This alarm corresponds to situations which directly endanger Ben. Rohan began accelerating toward the station. Or Marion Stone. It seems there is an occurrence on the station which fulfills both sides of that conditional. There was no sound, no crack of wind as Rohan sped through space toward Wistful. Show me and give me a location. It is inadvisable to travel at these velocities while... Don't make me call it the real Wistful. I'll have this subroutine erased and replaced before you can say safety hazard. Give me a location, then show me that video feed. Yes, Rohan. The situation is developing on West Block 25, pushing video to your mask. He grunted and turned a tight arc towards Wistful's western arm. A feet took over the bottom half of his mask. The view was familiar, the 50-meter-wide promenade that centered each of Wistful's 4 spindly arms, flanked by 2 solid walls of living space, 10 stories tall and another 50 meters deep. The promenade itself was grassy and rolling, dotted with parks benches and the occasional gazebo. The storefronts that should have been visible in the center of the image were hidden by a featureless, opaque shell that covered 10 meters of lawn and 3 stories of the building. It was round, smooth, and matte black. A dozen uniformed security officers walked near the edge of the black, weapons in hand, wearily observing the light-absorbing surface. A female amateur reporter Rowan had seen before, filming similar videos of less dire circumstances, was facing the camera, providing a voiceover. We are still live in front of the Makara Bistro, and I'm still Janelle Jannar, bringing you all the news that's worth bringing from the western arm of our home, Wistful. Rohan decelerated hard as he approached a western arm airlock. It cycled open and admitted him to the station. Today's news is a far cry from our usual hard-hitting exposés on the newest eateries and finest shopping to be found here. Today, Makara Bistro, home of the finest pressed meat sandwiches for 10 blocks, is inside an impenetrable black ball. There it is, right there over my shoulder. Rough calculations put the center of the sphere deep inside the bistro. Security forces are surrounding it, but seem to be unwilling to make contact with the surface. He flew down the promenade, skimming close to the single-faceted diamond plates that protected the avenue from the harsh vacuum above, superheated air warming his cheeks and forcing his hair to stream behind him in a deep brown cascade. What is this field of darkness? Is it a hazard or just an optical effect? What has happened to the people inside? Keep watching as I work to uncover. He cut the feed. The barrier was just as opaque to his third eye as it had been to light. I can't sense any spiritual energy in there. Rohan flew in a wide arc around it, studying the array of station personnel on the ground, milling about and keeping civilians clear of the sphere. A voice rang out from inside the field, loud enough to echo off the far wall of the promenade. Stay back. We have weapons and we're not afraid to use them. Nobody has to get hurt. A ping sounded, metal striking metal. The security officers looked around, surprised, until one shouted, Shots fired! Shots fired! They began a scramble for cover. Rohan exhaled slowly as his power surged at the base of his consciousness. Ben and Marion are inside that thing, next to someone dumb enough to start shooting inside a space station. That was a warning shot. Stay back. Security Chief Wei Li darted out into the open area in front of the field and waved her people back. She was reptilian with lines of red and green scales streaking her yellow skin. When she saw that everyone was maintaining distance, she ducked behind a portable shield. Rohan landed next to her in the ankle-high grass. She turned to him. Tow Chief Rohan, I'm glad you arrived. Your level-headedness and cool demeanor are exactly what we need to help defuse a precarious hostage situation. He nodded. Glad to help. He paused. Hold on, you're being sarcastic, aren't you? You're not happy to see me. Here I thought I was the empath and you the living war machine. How confusing to find that you've decided to somehow switch roles with me. He turned to look at the black bubble. Well, look, like it or not, I'm here now. I'd like to help. I heard the stones are inside. That is accurate. The Dr. Stones are currently being held hostage inside that field, and I would very much like to see them freed without loss of life, especially not theirs. Do you know who's inside that thing, and what do they want? Any demands so far? If it's money, I can scrounge some cash together. I just brought in a ship full of Androvarian bourbon. I'd trade a case or two for the stones if it would help. They have yet to place demands on us, though I will let you know the moment they request a liquor delivery. I believe they want something from the stones, and all they have asked from station security is to be left alone, which you're not going to do. Not unless the stones are in agreement with that arrangement, which they are not, as it was Marion Stone who summoned security to this location initially. Rowan studied his friend's face. Her forehead was tight with concern, but he'd seen her express greater tension in other situations. Why aren't you more worried about those guns? She waved a hand in dismissal. They fired a warning shot. They hit a sign, a target of very low risk and equally low value. Had they wanted to injure or kill somebody, it is likely they could have done so. And you're not surprised they have a gun in the station? There are 2 million people on board, Rohan. There are also substantial manufacturing facilities. There have always been guns on the station. He nodded. I can't see inside that thing. Can you? Maybe with infrared? One of her officers ran up and spoke rapidly to his chief. Whaley listened, then nodded and waved him away. Sonar is set up, which is telling us that the people involved are inside the building and not much more. We are still trying different imaging technologies. I suspect they won't work. Why not? This reminds me of something I've seen before, a power to nullify electromagnetic radiation. In that previous case, the power blocked all wavelengths inside a particular space. You've run into these guys before, or just someone with similar powers? She shrugged. It's hard to say. Can't you feel anything from inside? You're, a class 3 empath, right? She smiled at him, bearing very sharp incisors. Class 4. If I didn't know you were teasing me, I might have been irritated by that. He smiled back. Still, what's inside? Something is blocking my third eye as well. Another uniformed officer ran over to Wei Li. We've received a response from Fago City, ma'am. In answer to your request about those 2 prisoners, they were released from prison 6 months ago, current whereabouts unknown. She pinched the skin above her nose, right between ridges of scale that would have been eyebrows on a mammal. That answers your question, Rohan. This is the work of the 2 I mentioned, Androvarian powers. His mouth dropped open. Androvarians? Does this have something to do with me? I do a lot of business with Androvar. She shrugged. I believe this is another case where your very male tendency to believe yourself the center of every narrative is a threat to your sensibility. They want something from the stones, and it is most likely information about one or more of the wormholes. If they wanted you, there are many more direct ways for someone to reach you. Okay, I get it. What are we going to do about this, though? That field is impenetrable to light, but it lets sound through. Can you blast them with a loud sound, disorient them? She sighed. Of course I could. Yet I haven't. Perhaps you can think for yourself of a reason why I have not. Maybe because the stones are inside with them, and they might not want to admit it, but they're not getting any younger, and setting off a flashbang near them might give one or both of them heart attacks. You see, when you apply yourself, you are capable of rational thought. I had full confidence in you. Her smile took the sting out of her words, mostly. All right, very funny. I understand. I understand what's going on. What do you want me to do? You? I want you to do your job. Go tow some ships. This is a security issue. Come on, I can't just walk away. Those are my friends, maybe my best friends. What if something happens to them while I'm off doing my job? What will I tell Hyperion when I meet him again in the afterlife? Sorry I let your sidekicks die. It wasn't my job to save them. Hyperion was your homeworld's greatest hero, was he not? I'm sure he chose assistants he trusted to care for themselves. In addition, they are no longer sidekicks to anybody, and it is not, in fact, your job to save them. But if you want to stay here, I don't have the energy to try to drive you off. He nodded and stared at the sphere of darkness. What does Wistful want, really? You mean in regards to your involvement? Yeah, that. Did she ask you to come here? Nope. I believe that answers your question. He waited next to Ailey for the next 17 excruciating minutes while nothing at all happened. That actually gives fewer spoilers to books 2 and 3 than I was afraid of.
Yeah. I mean there was one reference that I'm like, okay, that got more development over the second and third book, but I didn't recognize any big ones. So if you've read book 1, I think that's safe to listen to. Because at the end of book 1 is where Wei Li starts kind of learning sarcasm, and I loved it. So that's funny.
Yeah, all the voices develop as you go along. Thank you.
Hello, buddy. My dog's like coughing behind me.
Oh. Yeah.
He like snuck up behind me. He's like, Mama, there's things that you have neglected during this time of night. You'll be fine, buddy.
My stepdaughter has a dog, but she's like extremely she's being trained to be a seeing eye dog, so she's like, you say like sit, she sits. She's not anywhere because you can't do that if you're a seeing eye dog, right? You have to be like ridiculously obedient. So
yeah, I have Jack Russell Terrorist. They mind well when they want to. And they're on a routine because I am a creature of habit. I do the same thing on the same days at the same time. And so I've got him on a schedule and he's like, woman, this is what time of night that we do this and that, and you're behind on schedule. And I'm like, go see your daddy. I wish I could teach him how to do that. Like, go see your father.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I am so excited. There's no way I can continue without rereading Wistful Ascending, though. Like, it's impossible. It's one of those stories where the story itself, I mean, the plot is good. The characters are everything. It's kind of like what I love about Stephen King. Even the characters, the secondary, the tertiary characters, the ones that come and go, they're really provide nothing to the main story, but they're just, you get to know them in such small ways. They're important to you, and you form a relationship with them. Whether you just like, I loved the parts about when Rohan goes shopping in book 1. And it's just those small relationships that make Wistful seem real.
Yeah,
I want to go back and experience that again.
I do that because I get bored. Like if I make a background character, like the NPC, that's like if you're a video game, right? Like that background character, if I make them like not interesting or not like have a quirk or like something funny about them, I can't write. I've tried writing serious books. I can't.
Yeah,
and with a main character who's like not very humorous, and I get bored and I stop writing. And it's like,
I like some well-placed humor.
Yeah.
I mean, probably because I'm that way myself, and I like how you described it, like NPC character. You don't have to give me an in-depth description of them. I don't need to know everything about their physical appearance. But if you give me something that differentiates them from everybody else in the book, I'm going to remember them. And the next time they meet, see that quirk again.
That's a trick. Yeah. You give them like a quirk of speech or like a physical thing, like they wear big glasses. That's all you need. Usually, the person with big glasses. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I walk in so and so shop. They put they looked up, pushing their big set of glasses up on their nose or something like that.
Yeah. But I will plug one thing I did. If you look on my channel, if anyone's interested, I did a recap video of Wistful Ascending. If someone wants to move on and not reread the book, who has read it before, it has like all the details and nuances that you would have gotten from reading it. But it's not like entertaining. It's just like this happened.
Yeah.
Very dry. But if
I would say watch the one about why is Rohan brown over that one and read the book. Yeah. Read the book.
Why is Rohan brown? That got me.
Yeah.
You know, what's funny is I filmed that video thinking someone was going to give me grief at some point about, writing as a white person writing a POC, main character. And no one has, like, literally no one has given me any grief so far. So I'm like, okay, I preemptive defensive move, and it ended up no one's really been annoyed at me about it.
Well, there's a difference. There's a difference. There are people who will write about characters and they think they understand,
Yeah.
and they don't. So they accidentally offend folks.
I mean,
But
yeah. I'm
like
not
even
yeah.
like I think Anitha was saying that Rohan's mother is from where she's from, and that just really connected with her. And just knowing, because Anita's my friend, and knowing that makes me love it even more and appreciate that you did that for her. Like that's just something special.
I mean, I did it because I love the movies. That was.
See, I love the dance. Like
Huh?
anytime I used to love watching those shows. Like, what was the name of that show? So You Think You Can Dance?
Yeah.
And anytime they would draw the week where they would have to do like Bollywood dancing, I'm like, yes, because I love learning about how important it was, what your hands were doing, and the proper placement and the timing. I just fascinated, and I just loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
I haven't watched as many lately as I used to, but I watched a lot.
Oh man, it's fantastic. But thank you so much for coming on the channel, and I guess I can take that banner off since that's over. We'll do that and take that off. And
thank you. You're so much nicer. I would just be like, you missed it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure hearing the prologue in chapter 1, even though now I'm like, I want to reread it so freaking bad. Like, this is torture for me. I want people to read these books, and this isn't a thing. Like, if you're an author watching later, I don't have to have read the book. If you want to do this with your book, I don't have to have read it first. It's just, when I started this, I wanted to bring people on that I liked and were friends with, and I love the books. Because when you start something new, you want to do it with your friends, because it's like, if you do something, if it's screwbally, it's okay because they're your friend. But the idea is to promote books and share the love and just help people kind of, get a little taste test, see if it's something they think they'll enjoy. Some people are really, they're sticklers about writing style, and that way you can get a little sampling of how the book is going to be. And I mean, these books are just candy, and I'm just grateful, and thank you so much for coming on and giving us a glimpse, an exclusive to the first chapter of Shadow of Hyperion. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be looking to listen to that one and see the direction. But we kind of have an idea, but you could have been throwing a red herring at us, because that could be resolved in the next chapter, and then the real plot is still looming.
I know it is.
So I'm excited.
I'll tell you right now, it is resolved in the next chapter, and the real plot is that's exactly
what happens. I knew it.
It's something to remind everyone of what's going on. Crazy Sam, that's what that is. I was trying to pronounce your name like it was something Eastern European, and it wasn't working in my mind.
Yep.
Crazy Sam. Okay. Thank you so much, Leslie. I really appreciate this opportunity. It's been a blast.
Yeah, well, guys, we're going to say good night to all of you here. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're watching the show after it's aired, make sure you hit us up in those comments down below. Let us know what you think about chapter 1 of Wistful Ascending. If you haven't read it yet, are you going to read it? All of Joe's contact information and where you can grab a copy of the book or books is in the description below, so check that out. Go visit him and let him know. Show him your support. Pick up a copy. You won't regret it. They're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. So thank you, guys. Y'all have a great rest of your night. And here's where we